is the Bookatarian here for another video. Today I will be filming my long-awaited, at least by me, book talk slash review on Daja's book and Briar's book, which are the last two books in the first quartet written by Tamora Pierce, set in the world of the Circle of Magic series. That is all for the intro. Now I will give you a brief summary once again of the first book in the series. Follows these four main characters who are children who come from various different backgrounds throughout Emelon or just the world in general. There is Daja, who is a trader who winds up being the only survivor of her clan Gazebo, which is her family, basically. She is a traitor and she gets labeled a Trankshe because she is the only survivor of her family's ship and deemed too much bad luck to continue to just like move on to a different clan and be adopted into them. So instead she is labeled as an outcast. Then we have Sandry, who is a noble, and her, I guess, town basically, or maybe country, I think it's a city of some sort, I don't know, comes across a black plague kind of outbreak, and so the entire area basically just goes crazy and form a bit of a mob that breaks into her home and would have killed her parents if they hadn't already died from the plague. So Sandry is basically isolated by herself, trapped for like weeks underground in hiding to try and avoid the mob. And she is discovered by Nico, as Daja, I forgot to mention, is also discovered by Nico. He discovers her during her trial or something, as she is labeled as Trankshe, and is like, hey, you got nowhere to go, come with me. And he announces to Sandry that he had been searching for her for months, and he also happens to come across Briar, who is a street rat and is on his last strike and about to be sent to the mines as a punishment for getting arrested 3 times, and he offers to have him go to Winding Circle instead and live out his sentence serving as a mage, or a dedicate. And lastly, we have Triss, who is the epitome of a problem child. Her parents literally gave up on her and she got moved from extended family to extended family. Finally, she was just sent to an orphanage in which she created an accident, kind of, and Nico decides to take her in as well, and she gets sent to Winding Circle with the rest of them, in which they all end up kind of doing something wrong in order to be sent to Discipline Cottage, which is a cottage that focuses more in a one-to-one basis on basically training students who are training to be mages in a different way than most students usually need to be trained, and because all four of these kids have magic used in a different way than any other mage has been seen as normal, they all get sent there and they very slowly become friends with each other. I have such a deep nostalgic love for all of the books that I've read from this series so far. That is all I can say non-spoilery for the third and fourth book of the first quartet. Bye. If you have not read it yet, read them both and come back and we can discuss your thoughts and feelings on the books, because I have a lot to say. Okay. So like I said probably in my review of the first two books earlier this year, I prefer the second ending books of this first quartet because we get to focus on my two favorite characters, Briar and Daja. And Daja's book obviously being the first one I will discuss, as it is number 3 in the quartet. And we get to see a lot of, well, not a lot, but we get to go to a different area that is not Emelon for the first time in this series. We get to go, I don't know, I don't remember what the town is called, but it's in the northern area of Emelon that has kind of been enduring these natural disasters much more intensely than the rest of Emelon has, in which they've been going through a drought, a severe drought, and it's been going on for probably like decades now, and it's kind of been handled as much as a mage can handle it by the local mages that work there. And we quickly meet Yurin, who is one of the only mages left to quench the forest wildfires that have been cropping up a lot these last few years because of the drought. He's kind of like their firefighter. He's the residential firefighter, and he is a very, very bitter. He's bitter character. He's a very bitter character. And we basically get to get some more backstory on Nico and his relationship with Yeren as they were, I guess, kind of rivals. Yeren learned magic at the time where Nico was really starting to shine as an all-star mage. And also, in this area with all the drought is a trader caravan. They are still traders. They buy things from Luksha, who are makers, and sell them to other buyers for a higher price. That is how they make money. And this in particular caravan has been just making its way through its normal route that they travel each year. And they're kind of stuck because the risk of being trapped in a wildfire is very intense right now, and they're still in town to try and make some sales. And we also tie in the plot that started, I think, mostly in the second book, where all of the kids' magic have kind of started bleeding into one another, and they're accidentally using magic that they don't know how to control. And the most notable first instance of this happening is when Daja accidentally makes a living metal vine. And at the time, she kind of gets stuck because the vine is literally growing up and entangling itself onto her, so she can't move. It eventually ensnares Triss as well as Daja, and they just have a whole hilarious scene in which we need to communicate telepathically in the way that the kids can, to get both Rosethorn and Frostbine over here to try and untangle everyone, and it's so funny. And a kind of representative of the caravan kind of stumbles across the smithy in which Daja was working at the time to witness this whole event and sees the living vine and is very interested in purchasing it, but she won't communicate with Daja about buying it because, she's Trankshy. And Triss, for how much she despises traders, she is just so astounded and enraged by the treating of her friend in this way. And Poyam, we learn, is this trader's name, and she is a cripple, so you got Trankshy are really, really down low. Poyam is just barely above a Trankshy ranking, and the only way she is still with the caravan that she serves is because she is the head honcho's daughter. So she's still considered a very important person, but because she is crippled, she's just less than. We get to see more of how the trader culture works as Poyam goes back to her caravan and announces that she would think that this living metal vine would be a really good investment for their caravan to make and sell elsewhere. This whole process kind of goes back and forth throughout the entire book. We get to see how a professional trade interaction is made. We get to see Sandry interact more with the Duke, who is basically the only reason why the entire group is here is because the Duke is visiting the nobles in the area to try and figure out how we can help his people. And we get to see Sandry have to interact with some nobles who are not that great and who look down on how Sandry was raised. And Nula, I think, is the lady of this area. Yeah, I don't like her. She's too much of a noble for me to like her in any way, shape, or form. I just don't like her. So I didn't like that aspect of the book so much, but it was still nice to see Sandry have to fulfill the role that she was born into. Wildfire stuff, yes, it's getting pretty out of control, and the way that Yeren deals with it, Nico points out, is not a very good way of dealing with it, and it does kind of come full circle when Yeren does literally burn himself out to the point where he's used too much magic and he dies because of it. So Frostpine. His story, oh my gosh. The whole situation and how we deal with the bleeding of the magics into one another, we have Sandry have to basically take the other three's magic and rewind them into her map. And Frostpine is just so devastated that Daja is so willing to give away her magic because of his backstory. And we get to hear how he tells Daja the story about he basically was sold to from his family sold him basically give his magic away and using it in a way that he didn't want to at the time. And so he's very sensitive about keeping his magic for his use and what he wants to do with it. And it was just so heartbreaking to learn about him, how he's so kind and strong and brave now because of what he went through. And he's very strong in his beliefs, and he does disagree that Daja should just readily give her magic away. Granted, it wasn't a permanent solution, it was just so Sandry can fix the magic bleeding issue. I do love this book even more than Briar's book just because of how much we got to see of the world and all the cultures just kind of melding into one another, and the character development story focusing on Daja, how by the end of all of this she could have earned a place back with her people, and because she's grown so much as a person she chooses not to. She likes that she's becoming a mage, and she likes that she can now become Luxia, the one thing that she's been wanting and wanting to do for her entire life but was never able to do. She's like, nope, this is who I am now, I'm not going to. Thank you for the offer, but I would rather not. And so I'm really glad that she didn't, because otherwise I would have just been really sad that the group had gotten split up. So in Briar's book, we focus obviously more on Briar and his character development, which is probably even better than Daja's character development personally, because he's literally spending so much of this book being isolated and using his own resources that he knows how to do. And it's a very real possibility that in inventing something to be a shortcut for something so inane and mundane to help women lose weight to be their ideal image and whatever, that they accidentally create the blue pox, a disease that is so fatal and can kill basically as much as the black pox could. And the wizard or mage who created this invention that did eventually fail was not careful in disposing of this and had some very, very serious repercussions. And they have some very serious consequences. And I don't like that we didn't get to see Flick and Briar's friendship grow to anything. It was just Briar knew Flick and bonded with her off screen, and her death is basically shaping who he's becoming now. Is, fine, but I'm really never one to appreciate a character being written only so they can die and to help the main character get to where they need to. It's kind of the same image in which I view sexual assault or any kind of assault, shaping being necessary to shape the character into what they are. It's like a waste of emotion, pretty much, and kind of sloppy writing. So that might be why I don't like Briar's book as much as I loved Daja's, but it's still number 2 ranking in the 4. So it does pretty well anyways. So yeah, we get to see the gang just kind of hanging out in a normal way that they do now that they are back from that mess of a wildfire zone that was Northern Emelon. They've settled back into Winding Circle, and they're just continuing to learn more and more about their magic. Yeah, we meet Flick right away in the beginning, and she's sick. So Briar, of course, goes to Rosethorn for help when she's helping the local, I guess, poorhouse, helping to try and treat normal diseases there is where they're at in the beginning. And they accidentally expose themselves to blue pox. So Rosethorn, being the person who wrote the etiquette on dealing with infectious diseases, basically, that she and Briar basically have to isolate themselves as well as everybody else who could possibly have been exposed to the disease to try and prevent it from spreading even more. We get a lot more to do with Crane, Dedicate Crane in this book, which is never my favorite thing, although the banter between him and Rosethorn when Rosethorn and Briar eventually have gotten past the disease out of their system and they are cleared to go back to work, because we need all hands on deck, literally, to find a cure for this disease. And the banter between Rosethorn and Crane is always something that makes me laugh, even though I just don't like Crane in general because of how much he hates on Briar and just says a whole bunch of unnecessary stuff about Rosethorn, pretty much. But Rosethorn can definitely hold her own in a wit match between her and Dedica Crane. But I do like that they actually had to work together a lot to figure out a cure or how to deal with this disease. And I love that they somehow manage every time that there is an outbreak or some kind of natural disaster in Emelon, that all of the kids are doing something to basically help solve the problem. It's not usually one stands above the rest. It's always all about everyone working together, and he acknowledges that he is studying to be a mage, and that though he does still have street rat roots, he is a lot more than that now, and he just very easily and readily calls his friends his mates. The birthday thing, I forgot about that. The whole Sandry is pressuring Briar to pick a day to be his birthday, and he was so cute. He like thinks back and forth throughout this entire book whilst all of these horrible things are happening to him and his friends. And he's just, his big personality decision at the end of this book was picking the date that Rosethorn decided to be his teacher as his birthday, because Rosethorn means so much to him, and how he was so intent on caring for Rosethorn when she did have her heart attack, which, oh, Rosethorn and that heart attack, it literally stressed me out to no end how scary that was, how she could have very easily died. And because of the weakening state she was in, I guess, from surviving the blue pox only to be nearly dead by something else, because her immune system was so weakened by surviving that, and just how that risk of the heart attack thing, you can have it a second time. You're more likely to have a second heart attack once you've had the first one. And that will always make everyone very hesitant about the whole Briar Rosethorn thing, because she's always going to be much changed after this. And like I said, the relationships between the mentor mage and the students are always more heavily looked at in each of these personalized books, and they become even more so in the books in which it's just the one character by themselves dealing with these problems that we get in the second quartet. It is much more so, but I love Rosethorn. She is my favorite mentor mage. Daja and Frostbine have my favorite mentor mage relationship, but Rosethorn is my favorite mage that we see. And I gave Daja's book, I think, 5 stars, and Briar's 4 stars this reread around, just because of, like I said, the whole character written only to die thing is never my favorite. So that was why Briar's book is a little bit lower than Daja's, but as of right now, as I have read the entire quartet again, it is Daja's book is number 1, then Briar's book, then Sandry's book, then Triss's. So that is all I have to say for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Click that like button if you liked this video. Leave a comment what your favorite part of these books were, who your favorite character is. I'd really like to know in the comments below. Thank you all again so much for watching this video and supporting my channel. I will see you all soon in my next video. Bye.